The Las Vegas Raiders are a lock to have a top 2 pick in the 2025 NFL Draft. And if you bleed silver and black and that doesn't make you click this like button right now, I need you to check the polls. Coming up right now here on the show, I'm going to tell you right now why the Raiders are having a number 2 pick, thus locking them into a franchise quarterback here today on the Raiders Report. If your team tanked, this might be the best news that you're going to hear in a very long time. And today's show is presented by Panda Supps. Make sure that you use code TANK for 20% off at pandasupps.com for the best workout supplements on the market. This is a company owned and operated by a Raider fan who, I don't know if you can tell, they are ready to get that franchise quarterback. I'm ready to get a franchise QB, whether that be Shedeur Sanders, whether it be Cam Ward. I need something to like again. Watching Raiders football games has been really, really difficult, and like we've been saying, we only got 7 more football games to go. But the reason why I'm fired up to do this show, the reason why that y'all are going to be excited is because when you get done watching this show, you're going to go, all right, Mitch, I guarantee I'm on boat with you that we're going to have an opportunity to go out and get the quarterback from Miami, Cam Ward, or the one that I think is a little bit more likely due to the connections inside of the Raiders organization, Shedeur Sanders. It's not going to be easy to get a top pick, but luckily for the Raiders, they're good at losing. So let's talk about this here a little bit. If the Raiders get the number 1 pick, we're an interactive YouTube show, and I always want to know what you guys have to say. Let's say it's draft night. We got the number 1 pick. Are you going to go with Shedeur Sanders, type SS? If you're going to roll with Cam Ward, I want you to type CW. If you'd go with somebody else, type O. My answer coming up here in just a moment. My answer is if I was the one actually drafting, I think Cam Ward's the best quarterback in this year's class. However, though, I believe that the Raiders would end up going with Shedeur Sanders because of Tom Brady, because of Deion Sanders, and because of Antonio Pierce with that overall relationship. After every single Raiders loss, Shedeur has been tweeting, "Thank you, God." And if you look at the timestamp down there at the bottom, I'm not kidding you, it was legitimately seconds after the Raiders lost, and this is the 5th week in a row that after the silver and black loss, Shedeur went on Twitter and he tweeted the exact same thing out. The reason why this "thank you, God" is interesting, last week Shedeur Sanders got a silver and black cleats. Guess what they said on him? "Thank you, God." Guess what he said? "Shout out to the Raiders." My point is, a lot of smoke, but we also know that the only way that this is going to happen is if you probably get one of those top picks. We talked about Jaden Daniels last season. We talked about getting a quarterback last year, but the Raiders were picking number 13 overall and didn't put themselves in a position to be able to go out and get that franchise quarterback. Well, after you watch today's show, you're going to go, yep, this team's a lock to have a top 2 pick, thus being a lock to have their shot at finally getting a quarterback. So I know a lot of y'all are probably going, well, Mitch, why are you so confident that the Raiders are going to have a top 2 pick? You know what? I'm glad you asked. The Raiders aren't winning the game the rest of this season. I'm so confident in saying that because when you just see how bad they've played for 6 straight weeks, they have the longest active losing streak right now in the National Football League from top to bottom. And I'm confident in saying that they're not going to win another game because look at the schedule here, and Week 16 against the Jags is a maybe, but I am anticipating that Trevor Lawrence is going to be playing in that game, trying to save his job, trying to save the fact that he should be the franchise quarterback. Week 17 is a game against the Saints on the road. Yeah, I know that a bunch of us, I'll probably be rooting for the Raiders to beat Derek Carr in that game, but at the same time, where's this win going to come? Maybe Week 14 on the road against Tampa Bay. The silver and black, I promise you, will not be a favorite in any game for the rest of the season, which is why I'm confident they're going to have a top 2 pick. And if you're a fan of history, which some of you are, some of you aren't, if you go back in the history books and look at the number 1 pick record, it should be noted that Carolina did not have the number 1 overall pick this season. They traded it for Caleb Williams, but just showing you what the worst record in the NFL was that year, 2-15. If I'm sitting up here going, I don't think the Raiders are going to win another game for the rest of the season, let's say they run into one. Let's say they get lucky and they win 3 games. Just based on history, they're still going to be in that slot to have a top 2 overall pick. I need you to be locked in for the remainder of the season. I'm going to be a loyal fan. I'm going to be a regular fan. I'm going to be a die-hard fan. What does that mean? When the Raiders lose, I'm going to be upset about it. When the Raiders win, I'm going to celebrate. And that's kind of how I've been my entire life. But this is the first time in my career where I'm going, I don't know if I want the Raiders to win. I don't know if I want the Raiders to lose. I do know this, that I want the Raiders to find a franchise quarterback, and I'm going to start doing a little bit more draft content here on this show. We might even start doing Shedeur Sanders, Cam Ward, Jalen Milroe watch parties. If that interests you, make sure you're subscribed. Let's go to the other reason here why I'm so confident the Raiders are going to have a top 2 pick. The Jags and the Titans still have to play twice. And I think a lot of people are sleeping on this. A lot of people are forgetting about this. Because if the NFL draft were to be today, the Jacksonville Jaguars would have the number 1 overall pick, and the number 2 pick would be the Tennessee Titans. Luckily for the nation, luckily for a lot of people watching the show, the Titans and the Jags, they play each other in Week 14 and in Week 17. I mean, those games could be monumental. Can we get our fingers crossed that the Titans win one and that Jacksonville wins one? If that happens, holla freaking Luya. Also, one of the things that I want to look at is the fact that the Titans, they play the Texans Week 18, which this is important to me because this could potentially be a rest week for Houston, a team that, let's be honest, the AFC South, I believe, is going to end up going through Texans, though Indy's making a little bit interesting. My point is that the Titans might be able to run into a Week 18 win against Houston if they end up sitting their starters. Coming up next here on the show, more reasons of why I think that the Raiders are going to have the number 1 pick, or the fact that the Raiders are going to have a top 2 overall pick in this year's class. Before we get into it, though, the code is TANK, which I know all of y'all can remember very, very easily because I see the word tank all the time down in the comments anymore. But Panda Subs is where I use all of my workout supplements. If you are like me, and after a Raiders game, I'll be honest, it's a little easier to sleep now, especially after the show I did yesterday. But if you're all worked up, take a little bit of sleepy, you'll pass right out. When you get done working out, if you motivate yourself to go to the gym, take a scoop of the BCAAs. That way you're really going to help your muscles be the strongest and most hydrated that they possibly can. What about protein? I drink a protein shake or two every single day, whether I wake up in the morning or I have been trying to eat healthier in general to lower my cholesterol, but that's a whole nother story. And some of these protein flavors, I think that you guys should go out and try. The mint chocolate chip is one of my favorites, though this time of the year. Campfire s'mores, the chocolate ice cream is really good. Sundae ice cream cone, cinnamon toast cereal, it's all amazing, and it can all be yours with code TANK at pandasubs.com. That link is, again, down in the comments, down in the description of today's show. They've been a sponsor here for over 4 years. And I've met a lot of people that have tried Panda stuff, and every person that I meet is always like, yeah, that's the best protein that I've ever had. Let's go to another reason here of why the Raiders are going to have a top 2 pick. Let's look at the Browns' strength of schedule. And when you look at the overall draft, okay, the reason why the Raiders right now are at 4, the Browns are at 3, and then you got the Titans at 2, the Giants ended up being at 6. The reason is strength of schedule. So the Browns' 2024 remaining of schedule. The remaining teams are 46 and 27. I'm not going to sit up here and try to do the math on every single game, every single team win. But my point is, because the Browns' schedule is more difficult, this could actually benefit the Raiders because their remaining schedule is 38 and 36. Now, yes, when you look at the strength of schedule in terms of winning percentage as it stands right now, the Browns are at .520. The Raiders are at .525. I'll tell you this, though. Whether you want Shedeur Sanders and Cam Ward, maybe he does end up going to Cleveland. You know who's not going to Cleveland? Shedeur Sanders. That I can promise you. So if the Browns are picking number 1, and if the Raiders are picking number 2, and if you want Shedeur Sanders, he's going to be a Raider. That I can guarantee, because Shedeur ain't going to Cleveland. Hell, I don't think he's going to Tennessee. I don't think he's going to Jacksonville either. That's a whole nother story. Let's then look at the New York Giants, another team that right now who, at the time that I'm making this video, they benched their quarterback, Daniel Jones. Some people might say that'll help, though I don't think Danny DeVito's very good. I don't think Drew Lock's very good. But I think what you're seeing right now is a team that's going, we're trying to tank. We're trying to get a franchise quarterback. And when you look at the strength of schedule, again, the Raiders are at .525. The Giants are at .526. And the remaining schedule for the Giants is 37 and 36. The Raiders' remaining schedule, just based on what it is right now, is 38 and 36. This can change a lot, and it's going to continuously change a lot. Hell, The Giants last week had the number 1 overall pick. They lost, and due to strength of schedule, now they're back down here to number 5. This is going to ebb and flow as the season goes, but these are the tiebreakers here. It doesn't come down to who beat who. The Raiders could jump the Browns despite the Raiders beating the Cleveland Browns. It's going to come down to strength of schedule, but as you saw, Cleveland's got a tough schedule coming up here, which is actually why I think that they're going to get bumped down, and that's why I think that the Raiders are going to be in the best situation possible to get that franchise quarterback. So if the Raiders don't win a game for the rest of the year, they will get Shedeur Sanders or Cam Ward in the 2025 NFL Draft. If the Raiders finish 2-15, just simply based on the way the NFL Draft's going to go, based on where the Raiders are picking, but then also the reason why that I'm so confident that you're going to get at least one of those guys is because Shedeur Sanders will tell teams whether or not he wants to go to them or whether he doesn't want to go to them. And based on just the reports that we have seen so far, I would say the only teams picking in the top 10 that Dion would be okay with Shedeur going to, and Dion literally just last week said, I'm not going to say it publicly, but I will say it behind closed doors, just teams that he approves of for Shedeur to go to. I would say the only teams right now picking in the top 10 that fit that criteria are the Las Vegas Raiders and the Dallas Cowboys. So, therefore, you're going to be a lock to get at least one of those players because I don't see the Raiders winning another game, and even if they ran into another win, you got the Titans and Jags playing 2 more times. I think the the Giants might be able to run into one. Hell, they're playing the Cowboys on Thanksgiving Day. There's going to be other opportunities, and because of strength of schedule, the Raiders will have a top 2 pick in the 2025 NFL Draft.